Welcome to the Athlete Climate Academy, where athletes, scientists and communicators come together to discuss the big issues of the climate crisis. And today you've just got us, Kilian and I, here to look back at 2024 and forward to 2025. Look at some of the projects we've worked on and ones we're looking forward to as well. Kilian, hi buddy.
How are you doing, Huw?
Yeah, good. This it's been a long year, which I'm sure it has for you as well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's we are kind of entering the winter slowly this year in Norway. It's been like a pretty warm fall, but yeah, it's been an interesting year. Incredible in many things, very challenging in others, and just I've learned a lot, which is what it makes the most. So I'm happy to discuss about some of these topics with you. And I saw that you has been also like busy all year round, like doing a lot of things. So I want to ask you about how it's been your year.
I think that the word of the year, and I think this might be the word of the year for everything going forward, is instability. Like, I feel like my year has been unstable, not necessarily in a bad way either, but you know, the climate is unstable, the weather's unstable, my projects and my work-life balance has been unstable. But not necessarily in a bad way. Yes, I've got a bunch of great projects working with Protect Our Winters and a bunch of other great organizations. And we've had a couple of great podcast seasons as well. So lots of things for us to talk about. But going back to the podcast episodes that we've had this year, this recent one we've had, season 6, I think has been one of our best. You know, I've really started enjoying in Athlete Climate Academy how we diversifying a little bit out of where our main lane was. I always remember seeing a video of you, a film somewhere, and you saying on it, I don't really consider myself a runner. I think it was something to do with one of your schema projects. And you were like, yeah, I don't really consider myself a runner. I think I'm more of a schema than you. And I just remember laughing because obviously you're one of the world's best runners. But we can get kind of funneled into lanes quite a lot. And I think on Athlete Climate Academy, he was always running, a little bit of mountaineering as well. But, you know, I really wanted to kind of push it this season out to like surfers and whale scientists and everything in between. So the podcast going forward, I'd really want to kind of see how we can do that even more. And I wonder if, you know, this year you've had any kind of particular people we've had on the podcast or other people you've spoken to through the Kilian and Jornet Foundation, like things that have come up that's been really interesting to you and the things you've talked about.
Yeah, no, as you mentioned, I think it's great to see that even if normally when we speak with someone, we want to know about what defines them, like they have been investing their career in science or in education or in like activism, but we are not only that. Like if we are athletes, we are speaking with people, so we are like a part of the community, so we are activists in the same way. Like if we are learning from the places we run, we are scientists in a way. So like it's been great to have these conversations with all these people this year that they embrace this diversity and this cross knowledge. Like just like on the last episode that you did, the interview on Callum, for example, like it was a great project they put together last summer, which I was a bit involved from Norway, on like what's the brand side, like how brands can like push into sustainability, but not only for making the brand cool, but like how can they push like a research or a message, how an athlete provider can like help on putting the message, and how scientists can help on the photography at the same time that they are talking on their on the glaciers in this case. So like how we can cross over all the different knowledge that we have each and like as persons to see that we are not defined by the thing that we do, but with all the who we are and all the knowledge we have. So I think this season, like for the people that has been following all the episodes, like it's a lot of that to learn, like on the crossing, on all the things that we are athletes, that we go to the mountains, that we go to the outdoors. Like, we are also scientists because we are witnessing like under our feet like what's happening, so we can go a bit deeper into that. If we are like talking to a community in our social media or that, we are activists. So like, yeah, with that we need to embrace more, to not be afraid of talking about things that we are not professional. We don't dedicate the 100% of our time, but that is something that we care and that we are willing to learn more.
Yeah, I think instability in our learning is good as well, that it always changes. And, I think I enjoy learning about specific things, but I'm always happy to learn about things I didn't know I wanted to learn about. And, this season with Rethinking Carbon with Rob Palmer and Do Carbon, Future Snow, Giulia Mazzotti with the snow melt and how that's going to affect climate change going forward. Speaking to the Callum episode, I had a lot of messages about that, actually, because he's someone who, I was just about to say he's someone who's unstable, but I don't mean it like that. I mean that he's someone who doesn't have a lane and just does whatever he feels right. I think since that episode went out, he probably got into some good trouble again. I think I saw on his Instagram feed that he was getting into some good trouble.
He likes to get into good trouble. I say, that can define him.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm hoping that next season we'll carry on the same. But you mentioned that you've been out on the hills a lot this year. You've had a bunch of great projects, Into the Unknown and your Alpine Connections project and the likes. Talk us through a little bit about what you've been up to this year and the stuff that you've seen whilst out on the hill.
Yeah, I've been racing a bit and doing some projects, especially in the Alps, this long crossing in the Alps. And besides I think we are seeing related to climate change, how it's affecting our activities much more every year. And I'm talking about racing first, racing 10 years ago, we didn't really think about heat. It was not really a factor on racing. It would be a factor in very specific races like Badwater or Western States. Those races were hot, but the rest of the races, it was never a thought on having very hot days. And in the recent years, most of the races, we need to have some heat management. We are thinking about cooling strategies. We are thinking about how to train for heat temperatures, because it's a limiter that it's more and more there, and that's because climate is changing and it's affecting our performance. So how climate change is affecting the way we are training, because the places we are racing are changing, and related to that, it's more and more studies coming out on how this is affecting population on things like health, because also in some places that people is moving less because it's too warm during the day. It's more sedentarism, and then it's we are moving less, so we are having more diseases, more cardiovascular diseases related to exercise, and that exercise, this lack of exercise, it comes for hotter temperature. So how heat is affecting us as a species, is just because we as animals, we are not used to that heat, and we need to mitigate and we need to adapt on that. And that's something that I'm seeing across all the sports, that just it's crazy how many we are investing on that to mitigate the effects, and not just for performance, but for everyone's life, and for if we think on governments and how we will need to adapt everything, because it will be hotter. And then besides, more specific in the mountains, it just last year during the Pyrenees, I did the crossing of the Pyrenees, and this year in the Alps, it's been shocking. Because I had been living in these mountains for a very long time, but it's been a while since I haven't been there. Kind of 20 years in the Pyrenees and around 7 years in the Alps, that I had been going there for some time, but never spending a lot of time in those mountains that I knew very well. And it was a shock to go to places and see, okay, just 7 years ago, these routes were doable in July, August, September, and now it's too dangerous to go there at this period of time, because it's the permafrost is melting, it's big rocks falling, because the glaciers are just melting, so the access to the entry of the roads, it's higher. It's accelerating very fast. As I mentioned, 5 years ago, it was not like that, and we are taking 1-2 months every year to do some routes, and it's just becoming, we need to think much more when we go climbing on what time of the year and what are the conditions, not only on the day, it's good weather, bad weather, but on how the season it's going, because the glaciers and because the the unstability. So that makes it makes that our sport is changing, and it's not a way that we just need to adapt, and we need to mitigate those conditions, and that changing kind of everything.
Yeah, I mean, 2024 set to be another one of the hottest years on record, and it's not really going backwards. It keeps getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And you mentioned, like, you know, certain routes in July and August that used to be in and not in anymore, or you shouldn't be doing them in these kind of heats. Your recent 19-day jog across the Alps was actually, though, in August.
That was hot, yeah.
Yeah, it was. So why was it in August? Is that just the best time that you thought you could achieve it? Longest days, you know?
Well, like, it was kind of a lot of factors, and in a crossing like that, in this style, like, I knew that it would be never like good conditions on every range, especially like if you want to have like good conditions on something like the Valais. I prefer to go like late on the season because it's more rock, so you can go faster on, because mostly you are on the ridges, so like it's pretty safe when it's very dry. But that's the opposite in Chamonix, where like the permafrost it's playing a big role on like the safety of the mountains. So it was just like at the end I needed to take a decision, and I decided to go late on the season, knowing that the Chamonix part would be like probably very dangerous, which it was. But accepting, on a project like that, I needed to take some risks at some place, either to have too many cornices or difficulties with the snow, and or like to have the problems with the instability in the rocks, and I choose for the later. Then seeing, it's always easier to see afterwards, like maybe if I started 2 weeks before, or that it was a bit cooler or that, but I think at the end, like and that on these kind of projects is just you go and you just need to make with the conditions that it is and go around. But yeah, in Chamonix it was scary. Like it was 2 days that everything was falling, and it's not nice to be there, even if it's good to witness what's going on. Like when you are there, it's not that you are having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember being in Chamonix. I think I was there when I was following you whilst you were doing that part as well, and being in the valley, and it was so hot already in the valley. But I suppose when you're doing that amount of peaks in such a short space of time and covering that amount of distance, you're going to see every condition. You're going to see rocks and snow and ice and everything else. So trying to weigh up when the best time to go is difficult, because there's going to be, and you're running sometimes in the night, sometimes in the day, sometimes at midday, sometimes at midnight. I think I saw you averaged, was it 5 hours sleep?
Yeah, mostly it was moving like 19 hours and resting for 5 hours every day.
Wow.
So as you mentioned, like at that time, like you can't wait for the perfect conditions, and because if not, you are just staying in the couch. So like it's just like at some point you need to just get out and say, okay, it's just keep going. And I think it's a good parallelism with what we are facing in climate change and general life. It's not that we can't wait like for having like the technology and the policies to do things. Like we just need to start doing things and figuring the way. Like we will make good and bad decisions, but we can't afford waiting. And in the project was the same. Like it was just okay, start and see what's going on. Like in phase, like it was bad weather days, it was storms, it was very hot days, some cold. No, not many cold days, I would say. Like to be at 4,000 meters, I was mostly just with a t-shirt like that, so not very cold. But you face kind of everything, and you just need to keep going and to make decisions on the way.
And Into the Unknown, your Pyrenees project film, is already out, right? That's out for the world to see. Do we have a film coming for this one?
Yeah, we had been filming a lot, or as much as we could. We are still thinking how to put it out. So it will come at some time. We don't have any date or pressure on that, but we are working on it. And it's good to see that the film in the Pyrenees, it's out there, that people is enjoying it. And it was interesting to see also that one of the projects we are doing with the foundation, with the Perma Pyrenees, because I've been talking a lot about the permafrost in the Alps, which it's a big risk factor. But in the Pyrenees, it's also like happening in a different scale because it's not that many mountains that they are sustained on permafrost. But it's something that it's all around. Like here, where I live in Norway, like it's a big problem. No? More landslides down where like it's houses and things like that. And we have been working with the Perma Pyrenees, which is a project studying the permafrost, and it's been very interesting to be following what they are doing, trying to understand more like what's happening, how fast it's happening, and what can be the implications on the Pyrenees, in the Alps, here in Scandinavia. That even if it's the same principle, like the implications are very different.
Yeah, and the Perma Pyrenees project just got a new website, which we'll link to, and your Alpine Connection stuff is all up on the Kilian Jornet Foundation website as well, whilst we wait for maybe a film to come out at some point. But Into the Unknown as well is well worth a watch of your Pyrenees Traverse as well. And yeah, we were out filming in the US this year in the Tetons, and I've been going to the Tetons for quite a while and seeing how it's changed. And we went up to the Middle Teton Glacier. Like seeing how those glaciers are changing is unreal. But the one thing I didn't really think about until I was there is how little you could see the glacier, but how much permafrost is underneath. And it's something that I keep coming back to since, you've brought me my awareness to permafrost more and more through our conversations and through the Perma Pyrenees project and the likes. There is still a lot worth fighting for. There's still a lot of ice that's there, even if you can't see it. We see these photos of what the Rhone Glacier used to look like and what it looks like now, and what this glacier looks like and what it looks like now. And they are going really, really fast, but there's so much more that still we can't see. And I think as humans, we get kind of locked into protecting what we can see. Oceans are a great example of that. We don't do half as much as we probably should for the oceans because we don't live there, we can't see it. And it's the same for glaciers. Like, there's these oceans of ice that sit underneath the bit that we can see, and they're definitely worth fighting for, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's that's a good way to see that we fight for what we see. Like we are so dependent as humans. As you mentioned, like glaciers are not just this patch of ice that it's beautiful in the mountains. And were you filming there in the Tetons for the Pope project? Was it part of that?
Yes. Yeah, it was a project called Downstream, and it was exactly that, really. It's a new film that's just come out in the last week or so, and it was a collaboration between POW, Icebreaker, and the VF Foundation. And it was to kind of show why it matters that glaciers disappear and what happens to the rivers and streams downstream of glaciers when they disappear. So what happens to agriculture, drinking water, the flora and fauna, and everything in between. And we looked at 3 different watersheds. We looked at the Rhone, all the way from Obergorms in the Swiss Alps, from the Rhone Glacier, all the way down to the Mediterranean Sea. We looked at the Columbia River in the US, which is such a huge watershed. We kind of had to concentrate on one particular tributary. So that was the Snake that ran from Yellowstone through the Tetons, through Idaho, and out towards Portland. And then the Waitaki River out in New Zealand that runs from up in the mountains all the way to the sea. It's a really complex river system, but is actually quite short in terms of the amount of driving we had to do in the US to get from one part to the other. But it was really interesting talking to so many different people. We did like 20 interviews for the project. Started in May, finished in kind of November, all the editing. And it was interesting to see the commonalities between people on 3 continents all fighting the same fight. Like the problems are the same everywhere, which is terrifying and heartening at the same time. Like everyone's fighting, if you're on the coast, to hold back the encroaching sea. If you live up in the mountains, then you're probably going to get less water, and it's going to come at different times of the year. Like these kind of things happen time and again in every part. One of the things that kept coming up was damming and hydroelectricity and that kind of stuff. We didn't touch on that quite as much. There's a lot of great projects out there about hydroelectricity and whether they are good or bad for, I won't say the environment, but like, are they a net good or a net bad? So we spoke to a lot of farmers, a lot of wine farmers. I spent that first trip back in May going from Obergums in the Swiss Alps all the way down to the Camargue on the Mediterranean. And most of it, though, well, some of it, I was sleeping in vineyards and on rice fields. Or I was in the Swiss Alps. So it wasn't the worst project I've ever done. Like sitting around speaking to people who grow wine about what they do, and drinking some really good wine. I think I came back with quite a lot of wine from that trip. But again, they're facing the same thing. It's instability again. I hope it comes through in the film that, they're talking about how do these grape varieties that they used to grow at the bottom of the slope are having to slowly move up the slope. And how many times have me and you heard that, people talking about that, people talking about flora, like
going higher up in the ecosystems,
that moves up, because we know that altitude is the same as latitude. Like if it can't move northwards, it has to move upwards. And at some point, there's going to be no more upwards. And when we talked to Crea Mont Blanc, when we were doing the Elevate Earth out in Chamonix, they were saying the same thing, that, things like flora and fauna, plants and animals, they're looking to adapt in the best way that they can, in the quickest time that they can. It's, as humans, and with this project downstream, we are also looking to adapt. But economically, environmentally, can we do that quick enough? And that's what I'm not sure about. So it was an interesting project for sure. But there was interviews that go with it. There's a 56-page white paper to go with it as well. It was a huge undertaking, and huge thanks to POW Europe for putting all that together, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's. I think what was interesting, or what is interesting, is that you see the same problems in different places of the world, and that it's going through like the systems that the problems, as you mentioned, is from the mountain towns to the sea coast. Like it's problems that come from the same issue, and they show on different different people is facing different problems. As you mentioned, in the vineyards, like it's a problem for the agriculture there. In some other places, it's about the power supplies, or about the drinkable water. Yeah, that the issues are so diverse, but are the same in different places of the world. Yeah, it's the future. It's that's the hard thing, that it's difficult to imagine the solution, because it's not a simple solution. And when you are saying about all the flora fauna is adapting, like going to higher altitudes, or to more like northern or southern latitudes, and we are doing the same with migration. Like one of the biggest problems, or the biggest reasons of migration it's climate change, like on the equator. So like it's we are adapting, we are resilient, so we adapt on what we can, and moving, it's one way we do. And I hope that this year, I think it was also nice to see that it's more talk about these things. And as you mentioned, like people is getting more aware about the problems. Like we've been seeing also that some of these problems are touching us. And when I mean us, it's Western countries or more developed countries. They are touching us much more. So like we are pretty stupid, like to not be that aware before, but now that it's touching us much more, like I think it's we see more policies coming out, we see more movements fighting for change. So that's it's some spoil on that. It's good to see that. On the other way, like we are also seeing like it's that talking with people that it's not in the same circles as we are, that I think in the outdoor industry, like we all have some kind of knowledge or some kind of awareness. And sometimes when you go out of that, like some basic things about climate change are unknown to be part of the population. It's like, how can that be? Like it's how can that be that people don't understand the problems of air pollution, or about like global warming, or even if it's global warming, it's happening, even that. And that means that projects like that, and to talk about that, and to use our platforms to talk about that, it's, even if we might think that we are talking about that a lot, like it's not enough, because it's still like a lot of people that it's not that they don't care, it's that they don't have the knowledge.
Yeah, and it's something that we've pushed for since we started Athlete Climate Academy many years ago now, that it's the conversation that's the important thing. Like when we're having these conversations, can, I think sometimes I have conversations, and it's quite difficult ones sometimes, purely to test my own beliefs. Do I actually believe that thing or not? What do I actually think about this thing? And it's the reason I think that we should have more conversations about politics, more conversations about science and everything in between, because I might think that I believe something until I talk to someone about it and then go, oh, actually, I'm not sure I do believe that. Maybe my view is slightly changed from hearing more and from having more of that conversation. So, every year that we do have there's a big conversation that happens. It's the COP, whatever, 29 this year. And you say that we've made progress. There was some great progress at that. $300 billion annually by 2035. Some loss and damage funds. Open up a new carbon market and to see how we're going to trade. International carbon trading is going to happen. But I think the big thing, again, that came away from that is we're not doing enough. We're not doing it quick enough. And also we're not in the least developed countries enough either. So, in a year that we've just had another hottest year on record, we're having these conversations. It seems to me, I have these conversations every single day. I'm sure you do too. But to a lot of people, it isn't the number one thing. And to a lot of people, especially politicians, they've got so many other fires on the burner that this keeps slipping. And they've proved it again at COP29. And I had a conversation with someone recently about why aren't we doing more? My city, Cardiff, is one of the most at threat from sea level rising in the world. I think it's like 6th. And I told someone recently, and they were shocked, and they were like, "Why aren't we doing something about it?" And I said, I honestly think that it's easy to do. We just had a big storm roll through, Storm Dara, caused a lot of damage. If we didn't fix that damage, we would be shouting at our politicians. But what about damage that's not even happened yet? How difficult is it for politicians to spend money on things that you can't see and things that have not even happened yet? So these loss and damage funds and funds for the future that we want to come out, because the estimated amount that we do need for that 300 billion annually for the new collective quantified goal to go to is actually 1.3 trillion, not 300 billion. So it's important for us to have these conversations, even though they might be difficult for us to have, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think unfortunately, that's like human nature in a way. Like we are always solving problems, but we are not preventing problems. And that comes to climate change is the biggest example. Like it's problems with, heat waves, problems with more extreme meteorological problems and weather. And we are not really changing the way we are living, the way we are producing, the way we are making our cities, the way we are like making the mobility. Just like when something hits us strong, like we are just, okay, let's put our hands and like help each other to rebuild. If we spend like more energy into preventing these problems, but it don't sells. I would say like it don't sells to fix things that they haven't happened, even if we know that they will happen. And that's the biggest issue I think there, that we need to get hit a lot of times before saying, okay, maybe it's time to put effort on prevention before just being repairing all the time. But I start to see some green leaves on that, and that I think you mentioned like in COP29, like it was not good, but it was like some things going on that give a bit of relief there. And probably what we see in the community in outdoor sports is that conversation is there on all the industry, and that people is willing to help each other. That is not pointing. I think we have passed this moment. Like a few years ago, it was a lot of pointing each other, like who is the responsible on, like is the industry, or is the policymakers, or is the people, like the athletes, or the like. And what I see like in the industry in general, we have stopped like pointing each other mostly, and we are like just trying to help each other on working together, and that's something that even if it's only happening in our industry, it's great because that can be a good example to take on other sectors, like to see that policymakers, private sector, and people are working together and finding the best solutions for that. So that's some green leaves there that are flourishing. But as you mentioned, like in general, like, and especially like when it comes to bigger policies and politics, like it's hard to look in the long term and not look into the short term, solving problems that will have a bigger impact for the politics.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I come across quite a lot and talk to people about a lot. That, you know, I'm from a really small country that has just over 3 million people. What is the point of us? Hey, and second in the world in recycling. So hey, we're doing okay.
You're
Next
doing
to
great.
Austria. Austria is still ahead of us. We'll take that mantle back one day. But a lot of people say to me, like, why do we bother? Like, the USA exists, China exists, India exists. These huge players with a lot of people in them. And a lot of the Western world, you know, produce a lot of emissions. So what is the point in us doing anything? And I think about it a lot. That, do we have a moral responsibility? Do we have a responsibility to show what can be done if we really put our minds to it? And, you know, we set up this podcast and this project because I wanted, and I know you wanted, to talk specifically to an audience. And it's not the biggest audience in the world. It's not, the outdoor sector isn't the biggest sector that there is in terms of fashion, clothing, industry, you know, tourism, all of that. But it's a peoples that are willing to have these conversations. It's full of people who love the outdoors. So, you know, I think sometimes, like, do we, as an outdoor industry, like, what effect are we having on that kind of thing? And does it matter when you have the fast fashion industry that's out there, and you have these other huge industries? You have in sports, you have, you know, FIFA and the NBA and like all these other huge that are flying from place to place specifically for a game, and then they fly back again. Like, sometimes it can feel like, what is the point in us even doing this? But
Yeah,
you know, you've got the Pro Trail Runners Association and a bunch of others that are working within this particular industry that are doing good stuff too.
and it's the influence of like if nobody's doing, nobody will change. If someone is doing, like, it will interpel you. And that's I think I got some messages from like cyclists, like saying like looking like what we are doing, like us thinking, okay, this athlete is renouncing to go to these races because like the carbon footprint of going to this race, and then like thinking, okay, like cycling, it's what we are doing inside, and then like bringing this conversation to the team and like to the team managers and saying, okay, how we can do as a team, like to change that, and that grows up into the federation, or like it's like, I think it's just like, if nobody's doing nothing, like nobody will not, I wouldn't say get inspired, but get interpelled about what we are doing, and as sector, as industry, as persons. So I think it's important to keep doing and to keep talking for that, because it's sometimes it just needs to interpel one other person from another sector, and you are bringing this conversation there, and that happens in the industry. Like we have been seeing great examples in the past, and then like it's policies coming on, and it's because someone started doing it and starting caring about that. And I think that's why we need to keep talking, why we need to keep caring about recycling. It's like the example of the kids. Like I have 2 daughters, and they interpel all the time. Like it's if you are like putting things in the trash, like they know like where it goes, or they ask you if they are not sure. They ask like, where is this pill going, or where is this piece of paper going? And if one day you are lazy and you are putting another, they are interpreting, yeah, Papa, that don't goes there, it goes in that place. And if they are having this conversation in the school about a topic, they are bringing it home. So I think that's how we got interpelled and how we change our habits. And in another scale, it's what we are doing. Like we are talking about that. And if it's some other people that it's friends, part of the community, people that is following us, that it's saying, okay, I never thought about that, like what I am doing on this area of life and bringing to their community. So I think that's why, even if we might think, it's not our scale, it's very small in our community, like it interpels others. And like you mentioned, like China, and I especially think it's like the impact of China changing things compared to the impact of like Norway or Wales or like any of these countries, it's huge compared. But if we are not doing things like they will probably not, but in the moment that they are interpelled and they are changing policies, they can go very fast and they can do a huge impact in short time. And that's some things that in some things we are seeing on like I don't know, electrification of transport. It's going crazy fast because a big country like changed the policies and it's changing quickly, but it needs to get interpelled by other countries or by other places, and that's our role, I think, as humans. You just like to not think about the small scale of our impact, but to think about first about doing good. I think just doing well because we believe on something and because we feel better, and that might inspire others to do it.
Yeah, I think that funnily, I feel that the outdoor industry is a little bit the same as like global politics, in that you have these huge players in the outdoor industry, and then you have smaller ones. I think it is that, if you're a small player, you can do really good things. You can act quickly and you can adapt and you can show the big guys really what can be done. And I honestly think that small countries getting together to find the best way forward and showing then big countries some things you can do, you can implement going forward. But when those big players come in, then they can do good stuff. I've seen, if someone like North Face or Patagonia or Arc'teryx or, some of these big outdoor companies decide they want to change what their jackets are made of, or they want, in the next year, they're going to change or try and do more regenerative agriculture. North Face have said that by 2025, they'll about 100% of its materials will be responsibly sourced. That didn't come straight from the top. The people have been doing that for years, coming up and up and up, the small ones. But now we're seeing the big ones change the game. And when they change it, we're going to see huge amounts of shift in carbon, but also in plastics and everything else, sustainability. And I was at ISPO, the big outdoor conference in Munich last week, and every single booth had the word sustainability written on it. I'm sure it was every booth. So we need to work to make sure that is still a word that matters, that we build, that outdoor companies create trust. I think people will trust. Like, I had a lovely conversation I'm obviously with Rab and the Rab CSR manager there. We talked about trust for a long time. How do we get the people who buy into the brand to trust that what we do is in their best interests, or in the best interests of the planet? Obviously, as a business, needs to make money, but we're not going to go the opposite and try and damage the planet. I think that's maybe some people have done that in the past. And I'm excited to see where I've seen some good steps in the outdoor industry this year towards more, I think less impactful is the correct words that I'm going to try and use, is a less impactful product on things. There's obviously so far to go. And I didn't realize until ISPO, like, how many people were trying to get into that space and how degraded the term sustainability had become in it.
Yeah, and it's it can be approached in many ways. Like I think less impact, it's the good word, because you can have less impact like on developing technology, on doing industry, on recycling products, because now even if we collect a lot of products, like it's not enough industry to recycle all of these, to work on the repairing, on the repairability of the industry, on that into the different like factories. So it's a lot of things to do, and I think it will come with cooperation within brands, because we are all getting the benefits of like working together, and all I mean the planet. Like it's it's as you mentioned, like not one doing one thing in their corner, but cooperating together and giving solutions to the others. And I think another way, like recently, France is putting out a policy on greenwashing and on repairability that it's pretty advanced, I would say. And I think it will go, not sure the repairability one, but the greenwashing, I think, into more like a European level. But it's great to see that we need to account for what we say. That is not that we can talk about sustainability and sustainability everywhere when there is not the same amount of impact behind, so that we are like having the same amount of talk as we walk. So greenwashing and policies on that are coming big, but also like on repairability in France, like in the outdoor industry, it's maybe minor, but like in big things, like in other industries, it's big to make so all the products can be repairable, and that the companies offer solutions for repairability. That's a huge impact, and that they will have like sanctions, big sanctions, if they don't act on that. So I think, as you mentioned, like some smaller companies are doing this for long, and to take the big companies to do it, sometimes it needs to get in, or like not inspired, but pushed by policies. And I think here in Europe, that's starting to happen on that sometimes it's this talk that it makes Europe less competitive, like economically, but it needs to happen somewhere too. If not, like if the other big economic powers need to change, like it needs to start somewhere. And sometimes, it's a proud moment to see that these policies are getting out, even if they are not perfect. Like they are, I wouldn't say small steps, but kind of big steps.
Yeah, until that very moment, when talking about like EU legislation, I'd forgotten for a little while that the UK is not part of the EU anymore. I was very happy in my ignorance then. But, for UK companies, we're still wanting to sell into Europe, so we're still going to have to abide by those.
Yeah.
You knew the Green Claims Directive that's coming in next year, adopted by European Parliament and the Council, means that there's going to have to be more transparency and accuracy. Third-party verification is going to be a huge thing that, you can't just say it's sustainable. You have to have other people come in and prove that it is. Environmental labels with regulation, prohibition of unsubstantiated claims. That thing of you can't just say it, you have to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. And this two-pronged approach of companies wanting to do the right thing, and Normal is a great example of a company who wants to do the right thing, and legislation and policy coming together to say we're all heading to the same place. How do we get there best? And I think you're exactly right earlier when you said, we're past the point, I hope and I think, of pointing at each other all the time and saying, well, what are you doing because I'm doing this, or you're not doing enough. And we're all pointing forwards now and saying, how can we all get to this same place? And we might disagree about how we get there, but we still want to all get there. And there's not many people I talk to anymore that, I don't argue with climate deniers much anymore. And I did spend a little bit of time out in the US after the election, and spend a little bit of time talking about climate change and how there are still a few people who we have to convince, but largely I found that politicians are just people, and they want the same things. They want happy, healthy lives for humans, and we want a broken planet to be repaired again, and we want the same thing as well as citizens. So in 2025, talking about looking forward to next year, what are some cool projects that Kilian and Jornet Foundation are going to be doing? What are some cool projects you're going to be doing? Is there another set of mountains you really want to do all of the peaks on that mountain? Wales is a good one. 3000 is a cracking one.
That's a nice one, yeah.
What have you got coming up next year that you're excited to talk about?
Yeah, no, so a lot of things going on. Like first, we are like in the personal plan, like we are having another kid, so that will bring a lot of work and a lot of fun too. And professionally, like just keep running. You were talking about US, like I still need to do some work on that, but hopefully I can do some races there and spend a bit more time there, like also to see these differences, like on how things are happening in Europe and are happening in US. And with the foundation, like this year, I think we have been starting to do some very solid projects when it comes to talk about local problems globally. You have been participating on some of them with the Elevate the Earth kind of conferences and activations in different places around the world, like where we are talking about climate change and environmental problems, and especially like what is locally happening in those communities. And we are doing a bunch of activations like that, and like having runs with people in different places of the world. And also like we started to do some restoration of trails. We are using trails like all the time for running, for training, for racing, and how we can like restore these trails so the abrasion and the impact on the ecosystems is lower. So like we are doing more and more of these projects around. And then like on education also, like that's kudos to my mother that she's doing a lot of this year. She's been like working with more than 150 schools, like on doing, and like more than 1,000 students, like doing a few weeks every year on different projects, environmental projects, involving the families, involving the communities, involving, like, as you mentioned, politicians, like kids going to study their backgrounds and what are the problems in their cities, and then like bringing that to the politicians and to the parents, and some they had making changes. So it's great to see that it's not only studying, but like bringing it to action, that it can be like some campaigns to clean or some campaigns to make changes in their villages and cities. And then in research, like you mentioned, the Perma-Pyrenees, this project that it's want to continue studying the permafrost and with Alpalga about the more the biodiversity in the glaciers on the alpine areas, and to keep research, we need more science and more scientists speaking about what's happening. So it's a lot of things going on, and I'm excited about what next year will bring. I think it can be interesting, different, and just to keep moving. I think at the end it's just to keep doing things. Yeah, it will be exciting one. And what about you? You had a big year, and you were mentioning that it's been like a lot of uncertainty. What you are like looking for next year?
Well, the thing that really got me through this year is the support of your mother. Every Instagram post I put out, every story I put out, the number one person that likes every one of them is your mom, is your mother. So a huge thanks to her for getting me through this year, and I hope that continues into next year as well. There's a couple of approaches I want to take on next year, and it's one that I'm hoping that our listeners can kind of resonate with, because one of the things I've learned over the years, especially when communicating climate science, because I've been doing it now about 20 years, is that you can be a specialist in one thing, or you can be a jack of all trades and master of none, but it's being better than master of one. So I want to be a jack of all trades going forward. I want to make sure that on the back of the new Green Claims Directive coming in from the EU, I want to lobby my government to do things, and I'm going to be pushing for a ban of fossil fuel advertisements in Wales, and then a health warning on all fossil fuel companies, anything that sells fossil fuel, so petrol stations and gas canisters and everything else has a warning label on it, just saying that fossil fuels contribute to global warming. So as a policy directive, I want to kind of push my government in that way. For education, we're going to be making more films, and with Protect Our Winters, pushing the downstream film to more and more festivals, and talking about how glacier loss and permafrost and snowmelt loss is going to impact people downstream and get people really engaged with, even if it's not a glacier near you. A lot of the world
water comes from somewhere, so yeah, they need to realize
comes from somewhere. And snowmelt has been the big thing this year that I've kind of shifted my attention with, is that so much of our water comes from snowmelt. So I maybe want to make a couple more films about that as well. So a little bit of policy and a little bit of education, and split my time between the two. And then split my time between me telling my stories through things like this podcast and other things, and other people telling their stories as well. So, I do a bunch of training with people like National Geographic and train their scientists to tell their stories as well. And it's something I'm really going to concentrate on next year, is how do how do we train the next generation of climate communicators to go out there and share their science with the world? It's going to be something that I'm really kind of looking forward to. Yeah, big things 2025, I think.
Lots of things going on. Yeah, that's good. Like, yeah, it's good to have things going on, and yeah.
And I might go for a run or two. Let's see how we get on.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah, we always need to find some time for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some personal projects that I really want to do, linking up a couple of mountains in the Alps and things. Just 3 of them, not on your level, but it's important to me to still spend time out in these places, because as we keep saying, and as we have scientists always say to us as well, that the most sensitive places on Earth are the most at threat. So it's the ones that are really high in latitude or really high in altitude, or that are in the middle of nowhere. Like, these places are changing super fast. So it's important to me to keep a connection with them. So I'll be going back to the Alps and the likes, and Iceland is changing all the time. I'll be heading back there. But it's important for me to keep kind of just like a little touch point with all these places to see those remote, because, you said, 7 years, if you leave it 7 years and then you go back,
it changes a lot. It changes. And we need to, I feel that most of the time, like, it's when you get to these places and they are beautiful, and you feel this connection with the environment. Like, I think when you are like spending too much time like on cities or inside, like, we lose this connection on like who we are. Like, at the end, like, we are an animal made with millions of bacteria, that they are like other animals, like they are other species that they are living on us, and we need like this connection with these other species and with air, and like with its life is not artificial life, it's the connection with all the other ecosystem we live in. We need this ecosystem to keep living, and it's very logical, and it's very obvious, but we forget about that when we are not connected to nature. So like going to these places and running, climbing, skiing, it's a good excuse to go to these places. It's a easy way to reconnect and to reconnect with who we are and why it's important to preserve all these places.
And maybe I think going forward, especially for me, but maybe for our listeners as well, that those times where you grow out in nature, and I've been speaking to someone recently about, is it enough to go out in nature and just be in it, or do you have to do something in it? And I thought that's a really interesting distinction of, if you are using nature to kind of access anything, but like especially how much we care about our planet, I think that doing something in nature is better than being in nature. I've got nothing to back that up. But things like restore the trails and, plug in where you go out and pick litter up. I recently, on the mountain by me, picked up a bunch of trash, but then I was holding it in my hands with my poles, so it meant that I fell face first down
with
down
all the
mountain, and with all the trash, and it was like a nappy bag as well and everything. But that kind of connection when you're out and doing something, I think is better than just going out and being. So restore the trails is a great example where you go out and you connect literally with a pitchfork or a hoe or something where you're like restoring those trails. So if there's something like that that's near our listeners, I definitely recommend in 2025 getting out and doing something in nature, not just being in nature.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's things happening everywhere. Like I'm sure like in your near communities, it's always like some non-profits or like just groups of neighbors and doing things. So it's just like to find out, reach out, and it's always need for some like hands to help. So it's great to be out doing things and helping on that. Like you feel this connection to nature, you feel this connection to the community, and you just feel good doing good. I think at the end it's just like if you do good things, you feel good about it, and at the end like we just want to be happy. So it's an easy way to be happy and to do good things on the way.
Yeah, get out and do it. Even if you're by yourself. When I was a kid, I used to run the trash collection thing in my school, trash collection club, where I'd go out and I'd encourage people to collect trash with me, and I was out by myself almost all the time. But I felt happy, and it was good. Kilian, thank you so much for a lovely conversation again, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do in 2025 and what our listeners do as well. We'll see you next year.
Yeah, see you soon. And yeah, everyone have a good end of the year and a good entry to next year. Hope that it's exciting projects for everyone, and talk soon.
Thanks, buddy.